Hello and welcome to a special edition of Aberystwyth Town in Conversation With. Tonight my guest is our latest signing. It's Jamie Reid for his third spell with the club. So Reedy, welcome back to Park Avenue. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. And it's good to be back. Had a lot of good memories here. So and obviously always been welcome when I've come. It's a really real family club. So yeah, it's nice to be back. And I've already seen a few of the people who've always been nice and welcoming, and they're the same as ever. So yeah, it's great.
Brilliant. Well, we'll talk about your previous two spells as we go through. But first of all, how did this transfer come about?
Well, basically, I was out of contract. So I cancelled my contract with Kevin Druids back in December. They train 3 nights a week, so with work and a little one on the way and family life, it was just. I also coached there as well. It was just a little bit too much. It turned up into a full-time role pretty much. So I cancelled that there and thought I'd have a little bit of a break. Had a bit of a break and started to get itchy feet again. I wanted to get back into it. I think with me being out of contract, I was one of the only players that's available to any of the Welsh teams. I was looking in England initially, so I actually went training with a couple of conference clubs, and then obviously the Conference North got closed down. All the Evo Stick has been cancelled as well now. So yeah, the only sort of option for me to play really was Wales. I was speaking to Mark Williams, and he said, "Why don't you come to us?" I was like, "Yeah, well, what a good idea." Got in touch with Corbs. He was interested, and it happened pretty quickly.
Brilliant. And what are your hopes and your ambitions for the rest of this season then?
I think the main aim is to, looking at the position we are in the table, is to firstly get out the bottom two. It's really tight down there, so it's. And from what I've seen from the side so far, it's a bit of a false position. Anyone can beat anyone on the day in this league, and I think, this season more than ever because of how it's panned out, and with the lack of pre-season, and 2, the stoppages, and now essentially it's been an off season and a need for a pre-season again. So who knows what could happen? So if we can get after a good run. Just win the next game. That's the main aim, and then just keep ticking them off as they come. So and hopefully see where we go. That's my personal aim, and it seems to be the aim from the club as well.
Okay, brilliant. Well, what I want to do now is just take you right back to your first spell at the club back in 2007, and we'll talk about a certain game in particular. But first of all, how did that first loan move come about to Park Avenue? And you're at Wrexham at the time, if I remember correctly.
I was, yeah. So I'd been on loan the previous year to Colwyn Bay, and that was my first loan, just to sort of get a taste of men's football. And I was sort of on the fringes of the first team, but it was just a step in and out. It wasn't anything concrete. And then I just got a call into the office one day. Aberystwyth are keen to take you on loan. Obviously it was your dad. Your dad gave us a call, and I was really keen to get out and get playing at a competitive level, and certainly it is a competitive level. It's a very good level, and I was only a young lad at the time, so it was nice to get that taste.
And your home debut, I don't think could have gone any better. Late August, I think was it a Sunday afternoon, if I remember correctly. The New Saints, the reigning champions at home, a 5-1 win, and you scored a hat-trick. So talk us through that day.
Yeah, it was. Well, I'd come on in my first game. I was Airbus away, and then I think I did all right. To be honest, I can't really remember much of that game, but yeah, I knew I was starting that game, and and knew it was against TNS, who were the champions. Everyone sort of, so it was easy to get myself up for the game. And we started on like a house on fire. As a team, just pressed them high. The formation, I played up front on my own, but we essentially played a 4-3-3 and pressed them really high. And they tried to pass out, and they just couldn't cope with it. We played at a real high intensity, and I got 2 in the first half. One thing, I can't remember which way round it was now, but one was a good finish, and one was a nice tap in. So to be honest, the tap ins are as good for me as a striker as any. So in fact, the third one was a tap in as well. So yeah, it was a brilliant day, and it was absolutely packed out, and I think I made a few friends that day.
Yeah, for me, one of the real shames about that era was that there wasn't video cameras at every game. Because for me, if there were cameras there at that game, then that match is getting repeated constantly, even now.
Yeah,
it was that much of a big result. It would be something.
Yeah, and it wasn't like it was a close one either. I mean, you look at TNS, even since then, I don't think there's another team that have battered them. Even when I was at Bangor, for instance, we played them, and I would say there was one in particular where we really beat them well and truly. But other than that, they don't get beat well. It's always a draw or someone nicks a result. And that day we just absolutely hammered. They were giving the ball away. I remember their manager screaming from, I think he was standing in like the gantry, screaming at them. Gary Bravin as well. He's a bit of a hard nut, and he was just going nuts, and they just didn't know what to do. And it's the first time I've ever seen, and probably the only other time I've seen them like that was against Bangor in that season they won the league. So
yeah. And you remained with the club in your first spell for about half a season. I think you went back to Wrexham in the January, but it was quite an eventful few months during that spell. It was obviously the infamous game against Haverfordwest in the League Cup, where the club had to win 6-0 to progress to the quarterfinals.
Yeah, that was a strange game.
Against all odds, it happened. So, what are your recollections of that game?
To be honest, it's a strange one. I can't even remember if I scored in that. I usually remember my goals, but to be honest, if I didn't score, that's probably the reason I don't remember that much of it. I remember the game because it was just mental. Like we had to win 6-0, and we did. And it was just like it was just raining goals. I remember, and they just again they didn't really know what to do. we just had a right go with them. It was just gung ho, and I can't remember much of the game, to be honest with you. I just remember it was a mental result. Yeah, but it was good. It was as that half a season went. Personally, it went well, and I got recalled in January to go because a Conference North team came in Tamworth, and to Wrexham, they viewed it as a higher level, and they wanted to test me at that higher level, and so I went there, and that was equally enjoyable as well.
So just from your first spell, which teammates really stood out to you during that period, and what are your recollections of training, and even dare I say it, some bus journeys, which I know are quite eventful with the lads as well, and any nights out as well?
Well, it's probably better not to talk about the nights out. It was a very good time. There was some really good players. Just going through the side, you've got Christian Edwards, who was just he was just Rolls Royce. He looked like he was in second gear all the time. Very similar now as a coach, doesn't get flustered. Gav Cadwallader, who I'm still friends with, still speak to. I've since played with him at a couple of other clubs, but yeah, he was a very good player. Sherbs, obviously. I've got a very, very good relationship with Sherbs. Still speak to him a lot now, and we've kept in touch ever since. Been to Australia together. So yeah, Sherbs, obviously. We had a very good playing relationship as well. So it wasn't just off the pitch; it was on the pitch as well. He was one of the players that, if I made a run, he knew exactly where I was going, and he would put the ball there. It was just so fluid. Jeff, again, he came to Australia with us. Great lad. Obviously, he's still here, which is good. We've had a good chat, a good reminisce. I've not spoken to him for a while, so it's good to see him. And and Jeff on his day is as good as anyone. Lightning quick, powerful, good finisher. He's a good player. Yeah, I think. I mean, that's probably the main players that, because I still speak to them. Stu Jones was decent as well. So yeah.
In that first spell, I think it was 10 goals that you ended up with before you went back to Wrexham. So a really, really good return in what was quite a short period of time. And I think it says a lot about the impact that you had during that loan spell. That, if I remember correctly, you actually handed the captain's armband for your last game, which must have been some honour.
Yeah, I was. Well, I was only like I said, I was only a kid at the time. And before the games, we had a huddle, and the captain always spoke in the huddle. I was given the captain's armband for that last game, and it was my turn to speak. And I think I just stumbled across a few words. I didn't really know what to say. I wasn't expecting it, and it was a nice little touch, and it was obviously a pleasure to be handed that. And I mean, like I said, it's the club has always held a special little place in my heart, because I've always been welcome there. Like I said, there's some amazing people behind the scenes, and they've stayed there ever since, and always made me welcome, whether I've been here as a player or against them as well, so, for or against. So it's really nice to be a part of.
And after your return to Wrexham, you then went back into the Welsh Premier with firstly Rhyl, where you won the league in 2009, and then on to Bangor City, where you had another equally good spell. So just talk to us about those two clubs and your experiences with those.
Well, after that season, so I went to Tamworth, and I broke my ankle in the March. So I got recalled after Dennis Smith got the sack at Wrexham, and in my first reserve game back at Wrexham, I broke my ankle, which ended my season. So and essentially ended my time at Wrexham. The manager never got to see any of me, and it was really unfortunate. I'd been there for so long. I'd been there since a schoolboy. So yeah, it wasn't nice. So it was a case of finding something else. And at the time, Rhyl had good backing. They signed some good players: Neil Roberts, Danny Williams, Greg Strong, and it was just a team that you could see they were putting together as a team going for the league. And Oshan was involved. Oshan Roberts was involved with Alan Baker's staff, and he called me and said, "Come in." I'd actually been training with TNS in pre-season, and they'd made me an offer to go in there, and I was about to accept when Rhyl came in last minute, and like I said, he sold it to me with the players that they'd signed, and I thought, yeah, I'm gonna have a real good go. It was the offers were equal financially, other than one being full and one being part-time. So I just thought, yeah, let's give that one a go, and it was the right decision in the end, because I think TNS actually finished third. I think that season. Not even. I don't even think they were the ones to challenge. I think it was Llanelli who were the challenger.
Yeah, they were really strong.
Obviously, yeah, they were really strong. They had a really good side. Reece Griffiths, Andy Lang just launching the ball in from everywhere, and it was. So I think, so like I said, I think TNS didn't even challenge us that year. They were finished third. So it was obviously the right decision. We were a strong side all the way through, and it was really good to be a part of. And I played a lot of games. Scored. I think I was the second highest scorer behind Robbo. So yeah, it was good. It was good to be a part of. I played more of a wider role. So we flickered the team around a little bit. But, it wasn't really a 4-4-2. It was 4-3-3 or a 4-4-2, and I'd play sort of like a wide player, but could cheat a little bit. So yeah, I sort of moved around a little bit, but yeah, it was a great season, great to be a part of, and the real fans are as good as any in the league. When they're doing well, they really get behind the side, and I mean, I think, to be honest, I think the game that over the Christmas period that year is one of the highest attendances in the league ever.
Right, 2,000 people there at Bellevue.
Yeah, it was about 2.5, something like that, against Prestatyn, and we ended up winning like 7-0 or something like that as well. So it was a good day. Yeah. Yeah, and then moved on to Bangor. So in that off season, you could tell things had started to go a little bit wrong. So that was about the time of the credit crunch, and I think the chairman had a few issues. It hit his business hard, from what I can remember. I don't know too many of the details, but a few of the lads were offered less money, or wages weren't being paid, things like that. And I was desperate to go and try my luck abroad. I had an agent who got me out to America, so I went out and I just went and basically travelled around America for 3 months and trained with a few MLS teams, USL teams, and basically just went and had a jolly up there for 2 or 3 months. It was good, and it was good to see what it was all about as well. The MLS as a standard at the time wasn't brilliant.
That was just after Beckham had gone out, wasn't it? A couple of years after.
Yeah, it was getting better. It was. I mean, so I went to 2 MLS clubs. I went to New England Revolution, who were very, very good, but there was a space, to be fair, and I did well. I was there for 2 weeks and did really well. The problem you've got in countries like there or Australia is the fact that if you're a foreigner, there's only limited spaces, and they tend to save them to the top end players who have got a name and will sell shirts and things like that. And, so I basically, Steve Nicol was the manager of New England Revs, and he basically said, I can't get you into the first team squad. If we had a reserves, I'd sign you. Because they'd signed this other striker, and I think he'd regretted signing that striker. They'd signed him off the back of the African Nations Cup, and he came in and he was just terrible. I think he'd done well in the under 17s or under 18s in African Nations. Yeah, he wasn't very good. So I didn't go there. I went to Columbus Crew as well. Some of their players were brilliant. They were very good. I went in there and it was a real sort of eye opener. It was one of their players had played for Boca Juniors and capped for Argentina. Well, it was their main striker, and I was like, I'm not getting in ahead of him. I was there a week, and they basically said, you know when here, and I could tell it was a proper eye opener. I went training with a couple of USL clubs, but they don't pay full-time contracts. So they're full-time clubs, but they only pay you during the season. So it was just too much of a risk for me to stay out there and get paid during the season, then have 3 months with no money in a country where I've got no support, no family support, anything like that. So it was just nice to travel around the country, to be fair. And so yeah, I came back and signed for Bangor, which, well, actually your dad had contacted me at the time then as well, and it was a case of either I go back to Aber or Nev, the Harry Redknapp of the Welsh Prem. He sold Bangor to me, and but they trained on my doorstep. So although I was playing for Bangor, they trained in Connaskey.
Right.
So it was literally I could roll out of bed to where training was, and yeah, it was just so he sold it to me. And again, it was one of them moves which I made the right decision. We won the Welsh Cup in the first season. great set of lads, really good set of lads. We've still got a WhatsApp group where we all chat. In fact, we were chatting last night. They all sort of wish me luck on my recent. I think I'm one of the only ones that's still playing. Les and John are still playing, but they're playing for Tier 4, I think it is, the 1876. Yeah, it is 1876.
Yeah. Yeah, they won't be allowed to start until, well, probably next season.
Basically, they won't start till next season now. Yeah. So yeah, they wish me luck. So they're a great set of lads, and that sort of changing room was what it was all about. There was no massive money earners. Everyone was sort of paid the same, and we just got a good core group of lads who got on well, and it just knitted together perfectly. We had a good season, got into Europe, won the cup, and then it all just rolled into the following year. I actually went to Australia in that off season, so I didn't go to Europe with Bangor, unfortunately. But that's when I went to Australia with Sherbs and Jeff, and that was just eventful. But yeah, we ended up winning the league in the second season at Bangor, and it was great to be a part of. But I moved halfway through, and that's when I moved to York. So yeah, finish it off.
Before we go on to York, I just want to just ask a bit more about your experiences in Australia, because I had a good chat with Sherbs about his time over there as well.
Yeah.
So tell us what it was like in Australia and the standard that you were playing over there.
Yeah, so it was actually me that initiated it. I mean, if you can tell by the fact that I went to America the year before, that I was always looking to sort of try my hand abroad and see what it was like, and it was nice to get those experiences. So I started looking at Australia. An agent got in touch and said, well, I've got this club that they're prepared to pay your flights to come over and give you some accommodation and a bit of cash in your hand. And I was like, yeah, let's go for it. So it was Dandon on Thunder, it's about 40 minutes outside the city. But it's weird. Australia is so big. So you say you're going to Melbourne, and it's like over here, Melbourne covers basically like 4 or 5 cities. So if you say, let's say Melbourne city centre was Liverpool, for instance, within the region of Melbourne, you've essentially got Manchester, Chester, even Birmingham, as far as Birmingham. And then it's like it just covers such a wide area. So you go in there, but you're still in Melbourne. So it's like it was a great experience. It was just seeing things on it was a different way of life, different scale, and it was a brilliant way of life as well. And we were looked after really well. Sherbs ended up staying, Jeff ended up staying. He signed for Melbourne Victory. Bangor were desperate for me to come home, so I did. And it was good. I think in hindsight, playing out there for the 3 or 4 months that I was actually out there, it kept me fit in the off season. Yeah. I totally missed pre-season, but I was already fit and sharp. So it was, I think I just rolled straight into the next season, and that was probably my best 6 months, goals wise, in my whole career. I think I hit about 20 by Christmas, which obviously got me the move. Yeah. And yeah, it was a great experience out there. It was mental. We had, I mean, living with Sherbs is an experience on its own.
I can
Jeff
imagine.
was young, free and single at the time as well, so he was I mean, Jeff's a great lad, and he definitely enjoyed his time out there as well. So it was it was brilliant.
Sounds brilliant. Sounds really good. So when obviously you returned to the UK, had a really, really good 6 months at Bangor in the Welsh Premier, and then the move to York City came around. So why first of all, why York City, and how did that all transpire?
Well, essentially that came from Gary Mills being the manager.
Okay.
So he'd just become the manager. but he was the one that took me to Tamworth in the first place.
Right. Okay.
So he knew exactly what I was like, what I was about, and I think he was looking for a striker. He needed another striker, and he was also friends with Andy Legg. So he contacted Andy Legg and said, "Is there anyone in that league that's any good and worth taking a punt on?" And I was on fire at the time. Andy was still playing, and there was one game in particular where I just absolutely roasted him to the point where it was about 70 minutes in. He just said to me, "Will you stop running?" I don't know where that came from, to be honest with you, because I'm not much. I've never been much of a runner, but so that came from that, and so he put my name forward to Millsy, and he then got in touch with me. Obviously, he remembered me anyway because of our time together. It just clicked, and they put in an offer. I think it was about £5,000 or something like that, and that was in the October. But then it transpired that I couldn't actually sign until the January, and he was keen to get me in the October end because they needed someone straight away, and it just dragged on. But I think I was quite lucky that I carried on doing what I was doing, scoring goals and building a sort of profile, because otherwise it could have just faded off. But they kept the interest, and then they'd made a couple of offers. Bangor just kept rejecting the offers, and then come the January, they actually the offer was accepted. They knew I wanted to play professional football, and it was a case of they just wanted good compensation for me, because I was on a 3-year contract. I signed a 3-year contract with Bangor. When I came back from Oz, I wasn't sure I was going to make it as a pro. So fair play to them. They paid for me to do a personal training course, and said, "Well, we'll pay for you to do this as like a signing on fee, so to speak, if you sign a long-term deal." So I did, and yeah, it was obviously a watertight deal that I couldn't get out of quite as easy. So, but yeah, York were happy to pay it, and Bangor did well out of it as well. So it was good.
Brilliant. And yeah, you had a really good spell at York as well, including promotion to the Football League, winning the playoff final at Wembley. So yeah, tell us about that spell at York. It must be a real highlight within your career.
Yeah, I mean, it probably is the highlight. That period, that 11-12 season is not so much individually. I mean, I did score a few goals. It was a good season individually, but as a collective, as a team, to be a part of that team was just unbelievable. And I mean, I touched on it with the Bangor lads. This is another group of lads that we all got on really well. We all still speak. There's a testimonial for one of the lads last year, and we all turned. It was the 2012 team versus everyone else essentially, and it was a good time. And like I said, yeah, we still all speak.
Sorry to interrupt there, Jamie. Who was actually in that York team at that time then?
So Mike Ingham was the keeper. So I knew Ingy from my time at Wrexham. Great lad, full of banter, loves it. Yeah, he's a great lad. But there's some really good players, to be fair. James Meredith, left back, went on to play Bradford, Millwall, played for Australia. He's gone back to Oz now. I think he plays in the A-League out there. Matty Blair was on fire that season. Ash Chambers, Jason Walker. Like it was just full of players that were just quality. Midfield, Andre Boucard. He was only there for half of the season, but he's probably one of the best players I've ever played with. Some of the things you'd see him do on a pitch and in training were just out of this world. He should have played higher. I don't know why he didn't. I mean, some people say mentality, but he was a great lad, and he worked hard. He probably could have worked harder and been a little bit fitter. But I've actually seen someone say that, like someone who knew him, say he reminded them a bit of that Ndombele, who plays for Tottenham.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
He is a very similar player. It totally resonates. I think he's very similar. He's so good on the ball. Some of the passes, and he just pass it through the eye of a needle, and it's great player. He went on to Luton, I think. Was it Luton? Yeah, turned out to be a bad move for him anyway, because we beat them in the final. So, but yeah, I mean, it was a great side. Yeah, very, very good side all the way through.
So talk to us about that day at Wembley then. What was that like, playing at the National Stadium?
Which one?
the playoff final.
Yeah, so I mean, so the playoff final was actually, so that was the second week. So we'd been there. We won the FA Trophy the week before, and beat Newport. So we'd already experienced it, and it was just the week leading up to the playoff final. Everyone was just buzzing. There was, I mean, I thought there potentially could have been a little hangover, but we just did exactly the same thing again. We were in the same hotel, same changing room, trained on the night, the day before at the same place, and just did exactly the same thing again. After we had won the FA Trophy, we actually had a party the next day. So so we won it on the Saturday. On the Sunday, we had a party in York, wives and girlfriends as well, and family and things. And it never got out of hand, I'd say, but it certainly, everyone had a few drinks. And to be fair, the playoff final was probably the most important of the two. I mean, the FA Trophy is nice, but they wanted to get the club back into the Football League. That was a priority. And leading up to it, there was just a really good feeling about the place. And we didn't, I mean, I've not really spoken to anyone about it, but certainly myself, I just didn't feel like we were going to lose. We turned up, like I said, everything was exactly the same, and just it didn't feel like we were going to lose. It just didn't seem like it was possible.
It was 8 years that York had been out the Football League by that point as well.
Yeah,
so,
it'd been quite a while. I mean, to be fair, it's probably touching that again now. We're in the Conference North now, but it's it'd been a while. And so I moved into an apartment in York, and one of my good friends lived. I actually met him because he'd moved in above us in the apartment above, and he was a massive York fan. And I remember him saying at the time, like, getting promoted is such a big deal. He would do it. He literally wanted us to do anything to get there. And you could just feel it, the buzz around the city as it was leading up to it. And then when we won it, it just went off. It just went mad. Like, there was thousands of people in York, like, filled out the streets of York. We were on a bus. The bus could barely move. I mean, York's not a massive city. It's not like Liverpool or something like that, but it was just packed, absolutely packed. Everyone just wanted to speak to us. Or I mean, even now, like, if I go to York, because we go to York quite regularly as a family, and it's because it's such a nice place. It's like a second home. And even now that I'll bump into someone and say, "Oh, you're Jamie Reid, you played for York in that season," and I mean, it's still nice. And my kids haven't got a clue what's going on. They're like, "What are they on about, Dad?" So it was brilliant. It was really good. I mean, Wembley, that's unforgettable as a place. Best stadium in the world, I personally. But it can also be the worst if you lose. But I've luckily never experienced that, and hopefully.
Well, I've seen Sheffield Town lose there 4 times myself, so I know that feeling very well.
Yeah. I can only imagine. I mean, it'd be nice to get the chance to play there again, but I don't think it'll be in a playing capacity. It'd probably be as a coach, if anything.
Yeah, and then obviously the following season, you stayed with York that summer and played in the Football League the following year.
Yeah. So, I actually got a bad injury in the pre-season. So I tore my hamstring, so I was out for about 2 months. But it was the last pre-season game that I actually tore my hamstring. So pre-season had gone really well. scored against Sunderland in pre-season, and I was doing really well. I was as fit as I'd been in a long time, and got into the last pre-season game, and I came on with about half an hour to go. First run, I'd sprinted past one player, and another player tried to bring me down, and as I planted my foot, my hamstring just ripped apart, and I was out for quite a while, and just couldn't get my fitness back. Took me till about, must have been mid to the end of November to start to get a run in the side, and it was, to be fair, it was a good run in the end, because a couple of FA Cup games, scored one against Wimbledon in the home game, and then it went to a replay and scored 2 against them in the replay, and that was on TV, and then I scored in the league the week after, Port Vale, and it was I started to have a real good spell, but then we as a club we started to lose games, and it started dropping off, and struggled to get back in the team, and then went on loan to Cambridge.
Okay.
And that was sort of it, really. That sort of ended my time really at York. I did come back, and after Cambridge, I was only there for a month to 6 weeks, and I came back, and there was a new manager. There was a new feel about the place, and it just wasn't right. Never really got on with Nigel Worthington. I think he wasn't my cup of tea, let's put it that way.
So it was time to move on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was the end of the season. My contract was up. I probably didn't appreciate my time there as much as I should have. I mean, looking back, it was unbelievable. It was amazing. But when I was actually there, I probably could have done a little bit more. I look back and I probably didn't appreciate it. There was times when I wanted to come home quite a lot. I enjoyed seeing my friends and my family and things like that, as anyone does. But I probably could have put a little bit more into staying there and thereabouts, and actually putting a little bit more in, and it might have changed things. But come the end of it, I mean, to be fair, the actual meeting with the manager to discuss the end of my contract essentially went, we can't afford to keep you on what you're on. And I went, that's fine, I don't want to be here. So I didn't even listen to an offer if he wanted to make one. I don't think he did. To be honest, I think he was just going to release me anyway. But I didn't even give him the opportunity, because I'd already said I didn't want to be there. I just didn't see me playing for him. I didn't particularly like him. I don't think he liked me. So it was. It wasn't something that was going to materialise.
So after York, you went to your local club, Chester City. And,
yeah.
How did that go?
Yeah, it was an interesting one. So Chester had just been promoted to the conference off the back of 3. There was a massive buzz about the place. It was my home team essentially. I class myself as being from Chester, although I only live outside. And there was a massive buzz. They were signing some decent players, and they wanted me. So it was like, yeah, let's do it. I took quite a bit of a pay cut, but at the time they were part-time, so I thought I set up a personal training business, and I was actually doing personal training on the side. So yeah, it felt like the right move. It didn't quite materialise how I was hoping. We didn't start very well. The team as a whole didn't really gel. There were some very good players, very good individuals, but we never really gelled. And it just sort of started to fizzle out. The manager got sacked. I had a bit of a fallout with him at one point, and probably my own fault, to be honest with you. But I did the right thing and sort of made it up, got myself back into the team and things like that. So it wasn't too bad. But it was just never really worked out. and then I got the opportunity to move back to Oz, and it just felt like it just felt like the right thing to do. To be honest, it felt like a no-brainer. It was a great opportunity to move back. I was going back to South Melbourne. I was going to South Melbourne, who were a massive club in their own right anyway, and it just it was a good opportunity for me and my wife, who we went out there, and it was just brilliant. We enjoyed it.
Fantastic. So how long did you stay back in Oz for?
So we did the full season. It was about 10 months altogether. Got out there, and it was one of, I say, my highlights. But from a lifestyle point of view as well, we would never have come back. We had no intention of coming back. It was, I mean, to be fair, my wife took a little bit of persuading to get out there in the first place. She's a proper home bird. But once we were out there, and even to ask her now, she would love to go back. We made a lot of friends out there, and I actually fell into the career that I do now because of being out there. We needed to stay. We needed visas and sponsorship and things like that. So I was looking for a job, but I didn't just want a job. I didn't want to be like just anyone. I mean, people go out and pick mangoes and stuff, don't they? But I didn't want to do that. I wanted a career. One of the directors had his own financial planning firm, and so I went and looked at that, and he offered me a job. I mean, it was a very successful time out there as well. Like we won the league, and they wanted me to stay on the playing side. I'd done well, scored a few goals, and I fitted in really well. So that they wanted me to stay on the playing side, and so they offered me a job as well to stay. And then we found out our first was coming along, and it just didn't seem feasible to have a baby out there. So it was time to move home, unfortunately. But it was brilliant out there. Loved it. And
then when you returned home, you signed for the New Saints.
Yeah, I'd always kept in contact with Craig anyway, and so when I came back, there was an offer on the table pretty much as soon as I landed, I snapped it up. I was actually looking, to be honest, at going into financial planning and training up and going part-time, but I was offered a 3-year contract at TNS, and it just felt like, go on, I'll give full-time football one more go and see how it goes. But to be honest with you, about 18 months in, it felt like, what's the best way of putting this? It just didn't feel like I was getting anywhere personally. I could have ended up playing there for years and got to the end of my time and not really had anything, and relied on maybe coaching or something like that. But I didn't want to do that. I wanted a career. I wanted to be able to look after my family, and an opportunity came along to train up to do what I do now. And halfway through my contract, I asked if I could just rip it up. I didn't want paying up or anything like that. I just wanted to do what I'm doing now and get started on that process. And we came to an agreement to go our separate ways.
And that's when your second spell at Park Avenue came around. And
that was actually during. So I went on loan during my time at TNS. So I didn't actually sign. I was on loan. So this is the first time I've actually signed for Aberystwyth.
2 loan spells, and finally you're a permanent Aberystwyth Town player.
Yeah. So that was a loan. That came about. TNS were a machine at the time. Fair play. Like they just didn't know how to. Well, they didn't even know how to draw. They just won game after game after game, and you just couldn't get inside. If you weren't inside, you just couldn't get in. I remember knocking on Craig Harrison's door and having a chat and just saying, like, when am I going to get a game? I can't just sit here and just coming on here and there. And he basically said, look, there's nothing I can say. And I sat there and said, I agree. essentially you were hoping they'd get beat. I was sat on the bench hoping they'd get beat, which is so wrong, just to get a chance.
Very, very honest of you to admit that.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I can imagine there is footballers that think like that, but I think just to get a chance. I mean, they were so far ahead in the league. A defeat wouldn't have made a difference anyway. It just give the manager the opportunity to change the team, because at the time you can't change a winning side, not dramatically unless there's injuries. And he's in that position. He was honest with me. I've always been quite an honest person, and I said, look, can I go somewhere and play? There was a couple of opportunities. Bangor wanted me back, but I think TNS were keen to send me to Aber, as well as the fact that, don't get me wrong, I wanted to go there as well. They were quite keen for me to go there. Can't really remember the reasons why. I think maybe more of a footballing side. I think at the time as well, Bangor were in a relegation battle. That was it as well. So that was the season that Bangor really struggled. So yeah, I went back and sort of left off, started where I left off really.
Another home debut, another couple of goals.
Yeah, yes, no pressure on this first debut here. So yeah, it again just got there, got up and running straight away, and it went well. It went another successful period. I'd class it as time there. So I was there till the Christmas time, and it went really well.
And the team had changed a fair bit since your first spell there. So who was involved the second time around? Who really stood out in that team the second time around?
So they were a lot. I'd say they were probably more solid. So they had like Stu Jones and Lee Sermon at the back, who as a pairing were like, I mean, as a striker playing up against them, they're horrible to play against. Stu's so good in the air, and Serms is just a nightmare to play against because he's just so big, and like it's tough to hold the ball up against him because he's just grabbing you and things like that. So from a playing against him point of view, so yeah, we were a lot more solid. Sherbs obviously was still there.
Jeff as well.
Yeah. What's that?
Jeff as well.
Yeah, Jeff was still there. Yeah. It was a lot different. There was Ross Stevens, unbelievable left foot, technically brilliant. Little Daz, who's at Carnarvon.
Yeah.
So he was only there. I think he was about the same time as me actually, and he struggled to get in the side. I think he loves being at Carnarvon. Like the people there love him, and that's what gets the best out of him. He didn't really settle properly at Aber, but you could tell he was such a good player. Yeah. I mean, some of the goals that he scored while I was there was brilliant. But yeah, it was a different side. It was very much we were set up to defend and then break quickly, and we did it well. And
how did that spell go for you personally?
Personally, it went well. At one point, I was on about 5-4 or 5-3 in the first couple of games, and I think I finished with about 8 or 9 goals, something like that. Which, yeah, personally, I thought it was successful. The team probably didn't get the results they probably deserved. I think they were sort of around the mid-table mark. They had TNS. Double bubble, and I couldn't play in any of them because I was obviously on loan. That affected them. So yeah, I think so. Personally, it went well. As a collective, as a team, it was average. Yeah.
And then from your spell at Aber, you've had since then you've had a couple of spells at Llandudno. Another spell at Bangor City, Newtown as well. So just talk us through the last few years, how they've gone for you, and the highlights of the last few years as well.
Yeah, I think obviously I went to Llandudno after that. We finished 3rd in the league, went to Europe, so that was pretty good. It was a very good time there. Great trip to Sweden. Played Gothenburg. Playing away at Gothenburg was was brilliant. It was really good. The atmosphere was unbelievable. I still think about it now. Walking out, they've got their own song. You never walk alone sort of song. It was in Swedish, but as you're walking out, like hair standing up on the back of your neck. I mean, we got spanked out there, but I say we got spanked. Result-wise, we did, but we actually made a good account of ourselves. We left quite well respected. The fans gave us a round of applause off because, there was a period in the game. I mean, we were 3-0 down, 4-0 down at the time, but we kept the ball for about 2 or 3 minutes, and they couldn't get it off us. Like I say, granted, we were 3 or 4-0 down, so it wasn't they dropped their intensity slightly, but we didn't. The result, I'd say, flattered them. They were very clinical. We had a couple of oohs and ahs where we hit the post or just went wide, things like that. So we didn't disgrace ourselves, considering the gulfing class between the two sides. But yeah, and then just dotted around really, and then ended up at Newtown and ruptured my Achilles while I was there. So that really sort of set me back. I was out for a year with that, and I fell out of love with the Welsh game really. I think it got very samey, playing against the same players week in, week out, 3 or 4 times a season. I mean, I know it's still the same now, but I think I needed a couple of years away. So obviously I had the year out with my injury, went and played for Ashton United in the Conference North, and it was good to have that time away. Went to Northwich Vicks, that was good as well. And another great club. I mean, Ashton as well, like a great club, great people there. But I needed that time away. And I got a call last Christmas off a good friend of mine, Jamie Digwood. Basically said he just bought Druids and he was like, come play for us. And to be fair, it was going well at Northwich Vicks. I didn't really, there was no reason for me to leave. I didn't really want to leave, but that call coming in, I was like, yeah, go on, I'll give it a go. And I really felt a part of things. They really wanted to do something, and obviously the project's still in place. They're still looking to do that. I just couldn't commit to the playing side anymore. But they're helping me or supporting me with my coaching side, which is good.
Brilliant. So just on the coaching, then, what age group is it that you're taking at the moment, and what have you done in terms of your badges so far?
So I've literally just been accepted onto the A license.
Fantastic! Congratulations.
Yeah, so that's good. I say I've been provisionally accepted. It still needs to be confirmed, but yeah. So I do the under-19s, which has been a bit of a stop-start one, but really enjoyable. Got a good group there, who have got some really good players in there. I think the biggest thing that I've noticed is, I think with the difference from what I can remember being a young lad to what these lads are now, is probably some of them don't have the desire. I think that's the generation. I think that it's quite generational. It's very much they love the PlayStation and your Snapchats and Facebooks and all that sort of stuff. Don't get me wrong, I like a bit of social media myself, but it's sort of a wrapping up in cotton wool. Gone are the days where you can have a go at someone and then react to it. It's more of a, come on, it's more of an arm around the shoulder sort of jobby now, and you've got to try and help them get there rather than have a go, I suppose. I mean, like coaches back when I was younger, they'd scream at you and you were like, oh God, it was a sink or swim. You either wanted it or you didn't. I mean, I remember the changing rooms at Wrexham. In fact, I probably can't talk about some of the stuff that went on, but essentially, you got bullied. I mean, it wasn't bullying. There was a line there, but it was essentially you sink or swim. You had to grow up. It was a way of growing up, and it doesn't. I don't think it happens now in the academies. It's very much a wrapping the young lads up in cotton wool, and I think, but definitely the talent's there. Some of these lads are really good, and I think there will be a few. I mean, to be fair, there's a couple that have already made the debut
Right, brilliant. And finally, just to touch on this season, then, how have you found playing without any fans there, and the season as a whole during the pandemic? How's that been for you personally?
It's been a weird one. I suppose I think the best way to put it is, I think, hard to get going. You couldn't really get into a flow because it has just stopped and started. I said pre-season wasn't very long. You couldn't plan anything because you didn't know when it was going to start, and then the same again now. From my point of view, I was training 3 nights a week. I was coaching 2, the game at the weekend, and then once the younger lads were allowed to play, it was pretty much a 7-day-a-week job. So it got tough for me with the family and having the new baby on the way. It got quite tough, and to be honest, I probably needed the break. So it was forced, or I say it was forced. It was the league was forced to finish, but I sort of ended my time with Druids just slightly before that. So yeah, it has been very stop-start and not been able to get going. Like I touched on earlier, you don't know what you're going to play each week because, I mean, you think you're setting yourself up against the team, and a totally different. I mean, I say a totally different team, not in terms of personnel, but in terms of quality turns up. You don't know whether you're playing. I mean, you could be playing. Let's say I don't know. You play someone one week, and you play exactly the same team the week after, and they either burn themselves out. I mean, you look at Carnarvon. Carnarvon lost 7-0 to Penabon, but then they played us at Druids the week after and won 4-0. You just don't know what you're going to get, and that's the same throughout the league. But that's probably one extreme that I can think of. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the actual league, it's you don't know what you're going to get, and hopefully we can get a good run, play with a bit of intensity, and actually make something of the season.
Yeah. And just to end on, can I just get your thoughts ahead of your your third debut as such away at Caernarvon next week, and then Haverfordwest at home 4 days after? How much are you looking forward to that?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be nice if it was in front of fans, especially the Caernarvon ones. They tend to give me a lot of stick anyway, being an expat. But yeah, but it's just nice to be able to prepare for a game again. It's been, and I'm probably not the only person that'll be saying that in this week coming up. So hopefully we get off to a good start. Hopefully I can get a couple of goals. If not, then we can at least get the win. That's the important thing. And yeah, let's go for it.
Brilliant. Well, really, thanks very much for your time tonight. And
no problem.
On behalf of everyone at the club, we wish you the very best of luck for your third spell at Park Avenue.
Thank you. Yeah, it's good to be here.